We've covered some of 2019's biggest upcoming releases in both video and article form, but what shouldn't be left on the harsh, cold, bloody side of the road is how goddamn great this year is shaping up to be for RPGs in particular. Since the dawn of the generation, conventional role-playing mechanics have become more and more prevalent in regular action titles, blurring the lines between the two genres. But the classic style has remained as strong and popular as ever before, both across major AAA releases and indie darlings. It's all gaming and pretending 10 packets of crisps count as a meal from here on out, guys, and I can't bloody wait. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 hotly anticipated RPGs that will blow you away in 2019. Number 10, Two Worlds 3. The Two Worlds franchise has always been a bit of a weird one. The original was something of a flawed gem, an ambitious RPG which buckled, sadly, under its own weight. Still, it courted a fanbase which appreciated the genuinely stellar game that was lurking underneath the rough edges, eventually spawning a sequel a few years later which still suffered from many of the same problems. Laying dormant for a while, a third game was announced back in 2016, and while not a lot of information has been released since then, its 2019 release date is apparently still a reality. With the new engine and the backing of a lengthy production period, Reality Pump Studios might finally be able to make the RPG they've come so close to nailing 2 times before. Will the decade-long wait for a sequel be worth it? However it goes, Two Worlds 3 should still absolutely be on your radar. Number 9, Anthem. Alright, let's clear one thing up first. Anthem is an RPG. Sure, it's very clearly gunning for Destiny in the way players are encouraged to team up and focus on combat in the world, but this is still BioWare, and there's allegedly still a player-driven story at the heart of the experience. Yeah, what we've seen so far from the project has been mixed, to put it politely, and there's a chance it might end up being nothing more than a farted out boff of a loot grind with so-so combat and repetitive enemies, but there's also the potential for it to be the kind of shared world shooter games like Destiny and The Division promised and failed to be years ago. This subgenre is no longer as young as it used to be, and hopefully BioWare have learned from the mistakes of the developers who have struggled to conquer it before. Or they might just pop down their own legs, but let's hope not. Number 8, Shenmue III. Because it was announced before a single line of code had even been written, it feels a bit like Shenmue III has been around far longer than it actually has. Though there hasn't been a huge marketing push for the game, there's always been news trickling out as recent as the reveal that the long-awaited sequel is going to be double the length of the prior releases, and that side quests are now directly tied to the main story. That's all talk though, and fans haven't actually had a proper look at the game yet, which is allegedly coming out at the end of August, but considering how many delays there have been so far, who knows? Still, Shenmue fans know more or less what to expect, as the original 2 titles boasted an insane level of detail and world interaction for the time, all built around a compelling crime story. It's doubtful that the third game is going to go down a more action-oriented route, and instead once again offer the same quirky RPG experience that made the series such a cult favourite in the first place. Number 7, Westland III. Isometric RPGs modelled after the classic genre forefathers have enjoyed something of a creative and commercial revival over the past couple of years. One of the biggest trailblazers of this resurgence was the Wasteland series from fan favourite developer In Exile, a name you might recognise as being one of Microsoft's recently acquired first-party studios, who crowdfunded the critically acclaimed Wasteland 2 and are currently hard at work on a sequel. Wasteland 2 took all the best parts of a tabletop RPG and stuffed them into a game that had incredible turn-based combat and a post-apocalyptic story as deep and compelling as anything the generation has seen so far. In Exile have proven that this kind of classic RPG experience is their bread and butter, but with no idea of what their next project is going to be now that they've teamed up with Microsoft, Wasteland 3 could also be potentially the last we see of them for a while. In a good way though, they're not like being whacked or anything, they're fine. Number 6, Kordvan. Kordvan, like so many other action RPGs these days, is going to have an uphill battle to shake off the perception of it being a Dark Souls clone. Sure, there are similar elements, specifically in the combat, but there's far more to Bandai Namco's upcoming release than that. For one, the unique visual design immediately sets it apart from similar games. Heavily inspired by anime, the character designs are a far cry from Dark Souls' gothic fantasy, while the narrative in general looks closer to an OTT action game like Devil May Cry rather than anything else. Originally set to release in 2018, the project was pushed to this year, and from the look of the recent trailers, that added time seems to have paid off immensely. You'll probably be able to tell from this footage alone whether or not this is your kind of bag, and while it probably won't take over the world, Kordvan should still hopefully be one of the surprise hits of 2019. Number 5. Tale of Ronin. From a pure visual perspective, there's no other game quite as striking as Tale of Ronin on this list. The evocative 2D art style immediately transports you into this world, which is poised to chronicle the human side of the feudal Japanese samurai. While the tactical turn-based combat takes the focus in most of the screenshots released so far, perhaps rightly so as well, as it's attempting to capture the high-stakes push-and-pull battles found in the best samurai movies, developers Dead Mage are also promising a rich, dynamic story that will challenge players with tough decisions and moral dilemmas. You've got to survive by any means necessary, and how you manage to keep alive is going to dictate what kind of person you end up becoming. There's no firm release date locked in yet, but between this and Ghost of Tsushima, 2019 could turn out to be the year of the samurai. Number 4. Final Fantasy VII. Like Shenmue before it, Final Fantasy VII feels like it's been in development forever. The two titles were announced at the same time, but Square Enix's reimagining has been even quieter than Sega's title, with there being barely a peep of gameplay footage following the remake's first few months of frantic marketing. Even worse, nobody really knows when the game is actually going to come out, or even what form it's going to take. Originally an episodic release, the first installment was rumoured to drop in 2019, but it's unclear if that's still the case. Though production is underway, the director is currently focused on shipping Kingdom Hearts 3 first, leaving everyone wondering just how far the game has actually come in the near 4 years since it was announced. Still, this is Final Fantasy VII we're talking about, and despite all these red flags, there's plenty to get excited about. The original is one of the greatest RPGs of all time, and while this remake is certainly changing things quite substantially, Square Enix isn't going to half-ass a game that so many fans hold close to their hearts. Probably. Number 3. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Another entry that veers closer towards the action side of action RPG. From Software, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is set to be a gory blend of all of the developer's past games. Taking the considered yet brisk action of Bloodborne, mixing it with the stealth of Tenchu, and wrapping it up in an agile movement system that's entirely unique to this project, Shadows Die Twice is the most daring new IP From have attempted for a while now. While previous From Software games have had detailed stories and worlds, they've mostly been abstract, forcing the player to piece them together through environmental storytelling and item descriptions. Sekiro, on the other hand, is poised to take a more narrative-focused approach, with a clear, more conventional story. That might not mean there'll be divergent pathways or multiple endings, though judging the developer on their last decade of work and the titles this game is very clearly inspired by, it's not a radical assumption, but it does potentially mean deeper interaction than ever before. No matter whether you're a fan of the genre or not, Sekiro should be high on your list for 2019. Number 2. Cyberpunk 2077. Easily one of the most anticipated games of the generation so far, CD Projekt Red's long in development Cyberpunk 2077 is finally inching towards release. After a major blowout last year, including an hour-long gameplay demo that showed off the inventive first-person shooting, driving, and complex dialogue options, the latest from the Witcher studio looks good enough to elicit a bit of a sex wee. With an emphasis on delivering an interactive world even more driven by the player's actions than their last game, the sandbox of Cyberpunk is bursting with divergent pathways and choice. This isn't going to be just another open world game where icons lit your screen and only the main missions have consequences. CD Projekt Red are attempting to make every scrap of content significant and contribute to the player's own journey through this story. Back in 2015, the developers proved that expansive single-player RPGs were still relevant, and it looks like they're gearing up to reaffirm that same point nearly 4 years on. Number 1. The Outer Worlds. Obsidian have always been one of the most fascinating and fan-adored RPG developers out there, but unfortunately those features haven't translated into major financial success. It always seemed like the studio was teetering on the edge, and they've continued to deliver incredible titles despite never having the stability most other devs enjoy. They've been bought up by Microsoft now, which has thankfully given them the resources they've sometimes lacked, but before they switch over to, presumably, making Xbox exclusives, The Outer Worlds will be their first AAA RPG since Fallout New Vegas. Filling a hole in the market that's tragically been ignored, their latest plans on taking the core of what made that Fallout title arguably the best since Bethesda bought the license and wrapping wrapping it up in Obsidian's new original world. Despite being set in outer space, the RPG looks very much inspired by the retro western style of New Vegas, only with a more pronounced sci-fi twist. It's number 1 here despite not much being known about it outside of a reveal trailer and a release window, but Obsidian being back in the genre that so sorely missed them at this level is enough for the Outer Worlds to nab the number 1 spot. So that's all this. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Which RPG did I miss, and which are you looking forward to? And while you're there, could you give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to WhatCulture.com for more lists news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh, you've been watching What Culture, and I'll see you soon. Bye.